This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast. Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews inside the commercial, packaging, wide format, and in-plant communities.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Impressions Exchange Podcast. My name is Corey Francer, and I am the editor-in-chief of Packaging Impressions. And today I am thrilled to be joined by Ed Zumbiel, president of Zumbiel Digital, who is joining us today from Hebron, Kentucky. And for those that aren't familiar with Zumbiel Digital, the company is a really innovative organization in the folding carton and packaging segment. But they've also been a leader as the coronavirus pandemic has taken hold of the country and around the world. What Zumbiel Digital has been doing with its fibershield.org initiative has been a really incredible story, and we're really thrilled to have Ed on to tell us a little bit more about FiberShield and how it all got started. So Ed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Corey. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. But before we dive into FiberShield, I was just wondering if you could provide us with, a little bit of background on Zumbiel Digital and, kind of what the company is all about. I know you and I have talked quite a bit about some of the really innovative stuff that you're doing with digital print technology and some of the really cool things coming out of your facility. So, I was wondering if you could just kind of walk us through a little bit about the company.
Sure thing. At the 40,000 foot level, Zumbiel has been around since approximately 1843. We started as a dry goods manufacturer in downtown Cincinnati, and then we have evolved somewhat over the last 170 plus years to become dedicated to the paperboard packaging industry. Everything we do is paperboard, no plastic, no film, no foils, pretty much. And our operation has been continuously run by members of the Zumbiel family since 1876. So we've been around a while. We've seen a lot of different things, and then over the last few years, we've tried to morph into more of an avant-garde, not niche producer, but to try to take advantage of what's coming along in the world with respect to digital packaging, and that's where the Zumbiel Digital evolved from. It's a sort of a metamorphosis. We still do all of our commodity packaging, primarily serving food and beverage manufacturers, but we're trying to take that into the next century, or at least into this century, and trying as best we can to be at the forefront of that industry.
Absolutely. Perfect. Great. Thank you for providing that overview. Since the COVID-19 pandemic has kind of taken hold of the nation and around the world, we've seen that there's a huge need out there for personal protective equipment, on the front lines of this. And I know a few weeks ago I stumbled across fibershield.org. I believe it was the Paperboard Packaging Council that sent out some information about it, and I understand that Zumbiel was instrumental in the creation of fibershield.org. So can you tell us a little bit about how the idea for FiberShield came about, and how it's really ramped up into what it's become?
Well, first, let me just clarify that
Sure.
Zumbiel did not. We weren't necessarily the first people to come up with the idea. I don't think we were the last either, but we were somewhere toward the beginning, and we actually jumped in and did something. How it came about from the United States perspective was quite simple. I was watching a television program, one of the national news media, I think, on a Saturday morning during quarantine at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And a little piece or segment came on about some folks up on the East Coast who were 3D printing the frames for face shields that then would have a piece of plastic attached to them. And as I watched it, they were very giddy and very excited about the fact that when they worked 24 hours a day, they could output almost 5,000 face shields. And so I laughed and I turned to my wife and I said, "This is a joke, 5,000 a day." I said, we can do 5,000 of something like this in a matter of minutes, literally, maybe even a couple minutes, depending on the style. And so my wife laughed at me and said, what are you proposing?" And basically said, "Clear the kitchen table. I need to get to work." And so I dusted off my some of my tools and my old instructions from when I was a young child working in our structural design department. In other words, I got out an X-Acto knife and I pulled some folding cartons out of the recycle bin in the kitchen and started cutting away. And so I came up with a very crude two-piece face shield, and I used a little saran wrap and duct tape and other appropriate instruments that you find around the house to create a prototype. And then, if, like a good guy, I stuck the prototype on my wife's face, took a picture, and then emailed the prototype along with some little crude sketches, literally back of the cocktail napkin type stuff, and sent those over to one of Zumbiel's structural designers, who was, again on Saturday at home. Followed up with a telephone call to this particular designer, a fellow named Stephen Block, who deserves really all the credit in this, and told him this was important and that I needed to get a real design, not an Ed Zumbiel out of the recycle bin design, as quickly as he could. And so this was, I don't know, like at 2 or 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon when I emailed him. And then by about 7 or 8 o'clock that night, Steve emailed me back pictures of himself wearing what was very, very close to one of the final fiber shield face shield designs. And so then on Monday morning, Steve came in, revised the design, and we actually had a workable, producible face shield design. And so we, of course, then sent the design over to the die cutting department. Then we also worked on some other designs. And so within probably, I'd say, from conception to actually being able to produce, we were less than a week away from doing that. So once we had the design, then we reached out to some of the people who we had seen on the news who were desperate for any kind of PPE, including face shields. And then so that's sort of where things took off in the U.S. And then later that week, coincidentally, I had a conference call, a Zoom meeting, I guess, with the management committee for what's known as the International Packaging Group, which is a consortium of about 20 different paperboard packaging companies sprinkled throughout the globe, anywhere from South America, Asia, Europe, North America, of course. And during our management committee meeting, I mentioned to the group that we had developed a face shield, and that our initial impression was that people were very interested in getting their hands on these things, as there was nothing but shortages. And then one of the other members of the committee, a fellow named Andreas Keller from the folding carton company Pawi out of a suburb of Zurich, Switzerland, mentioned that his company had also been working on a face shield for exactly the same purpose. And so in that short period of time, we all decided that it would be a great idea if we would get all of the International Packaging Group companies to be involved in producing the face shields. And Andreas and I both decided on the spot that we would allow anyone in the world who wanted to manufacture these face shields to use our proprietary designs. Both the Pawi design and the 2 Zumbiel designs are all patent pending in various places throughout the world. And we thought it was just a great idea that we shouldn't worry about trying to profit on this, but rather try to see if we could help, protect some of the first responders and medical professionals. And so that's where it started. And then about less than a week after that, there happened to be a paperboard packaging council meeting. And I'm not sure if this was a full board meeting or if it was just some kind of COVID-19 update, but I was participating in that as well. And I brought up what we were doing with the International Packaging Group to Ben Markins and the Paperboard Packaging Council. And right away, Ben and company thought it was a great idea to get the PPC members involved as well. And so then Ben sent out an epistle to all the members of PPC, inviting them to join the cause. and that's sort of how it got started. Then from there, we had a website built, lickety split. So if you go to the website fibershield.org, you'll see that it's a pretty nice website, but it could be improved. But time was indeed of the essence. And so on the website, we list a directory of all participating folding carton companies throughout the world. So if you're a healthcare provider or a first responder, you're able to hop on the site and find the nearest participating folding carton manufacturer. And in addition to listing the names of all and contacts for the participants, we also have uploaded the proprietary designs, the different die lines that carton converters need to output a die and get on their way. And then finally, there's a section on there for converter support. That is, and that's where we were really impressed, because not only do all these converters volunteer their time and equipment and know-how to manufacture these things, but many of the largest paperboard manufacturers around the globe have stepped up to the plate and have volunteered to donate paperboard to converters who are donating face shields. So everyone from Graphic Packaging to WestRock to Metza, Stora, and on and on. There's probably over a dozen paperboard manufacturers who are all donating these face shields. And so that's how this thing evolved. And the caveat to our generous donation of our design is that we ask each converter who wants to participate to pledge to give away 100,000 face shields to whomever in their area or anywhere. And then they're free to, if they want to manufacture extra and sell them to people who have money to purchase them, and that's fine, at least throughout 2020. But the key is you can use the design, but donate the things. Don't just use the design and try to make a quick buck and take advantage of the COVID-19.
Right, absolutely. Oh wow, that's amazing, and it's really impressive how how quickly it was able to ramp up and get so many people involved. And that's something that really stood out to me right away when I was perusing the website, was just how collaborative it is. And you mentioned the material suppliers taking part and donating some of some of their products to help the cause, and also the international scope of it, and that there are across Europe people participating, and across North America people participating. So what has that been like to be able to get such buy-in from all around the industry and all around the world to contribute to such an important cause, and really get all of this participation from so many industry players to really help produce this equipment that's so essential at this time?
Well, it is both uplifting and it's also depressing to an extent. It's two sides of the same coin. You see, it's fantastic on the one hand that there is such keen interest from package converters all over the world, and so that's a positive. Everyone wants to help. They see that they actually are in a unique position where they can indeed help and provide these much needed pieces of PPE. But on the other hand, you just see how desperate places of the world are, in fact, for PPE. It's sad on that hand that there is this kind of shortage everywhere, and that the need is so great. And even as the U.S. seems to be approaching its peak, we're receiving inquiries every week still from other places in the world. People either looking for PPE or other carton companies who are now getting involved because the COVID-19 is spreading to their neck of the woods. We suspect that as Europe cools off, that Africa and South America are going to keep coming on strong, and that's going to raise other problems. We don't have many folks participating in Africa, especially, but hopefully we'll see some more people there. But we do have folks in Turkey and Saudi Arabia and close points who will hopefully be able to ship some containers of face shields down to Africa in particular. And we're already looking at getting some down to South America, at least around the tip of South America, like Peru and Venezuela, as the need arises there. So So it's great to see everyone participating, but it's really depressing to see that everyone has to participate because it's just that widespread and it's just such a global problem.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. And but yeah, it's good to hear at least that that the organization has kind of been out in front of it, and seeing how things have gone and the way that it's been spreading, really getting ahead of the places where we might start to see the flare ups that we haven't yet, like in Africa and South America. That's good to hear at least that there's some preparations there to get out ahead of the need that is likely going to be inevitable in those areas as well.
Yeah, we have two producers down in São Paulo, Brazil, and São Paulo and the northern parts of Brazil are just getting hit as hard as can be. I think Brazil moved into fourth place over the weekend in terms of total number of COVID-19 cases by country. So so it's not a finished event, and we're still producing at Zumbiel just as much as we ever were. We have back orders right now for about 120,000 shields. More plastic material is supposed to be arriving literally today, so that we can window up all of the shields that we've already printed and die cut. So we'll hopefully be able to keep up with demand throughout the world. And so far, I think that the participating companies really are doing a good job of keeping up with the demand in their local areas. Sure. But we always need more converters throughout Europe, Asia, Middle East, etc. Anyone who's willing to put their die cutters and window machines in operation, they are welcome to join us.
Absolutely. So at this point, Fiber Shield's been up and running now for several weeks. So I was just wondering, do you have sort of an approximation of how many shields have been donated at this point?
It's an approximation, but sure. It's by no means scientific. We have the Secretariat for the International Packaging Group has been trying to keep track of the international members and what they're producing. And we've asked the U.S. producers to give us a heads up, et cetera, just so we can keep the numbers reasonably current on the website. But as best we can tell, we know we're way over 2 million face shields donated, and probably less than 3 million, although it could be over 3 million by now. And everyone I talk to, I think we have about 30 converters in the U.S., and the vast majority of them have all exceeded their 100,000 face shield donation. A couple of them have contacted me saying they're having trouble finding homes for them, etc. And we all tell them the same thing. It's like, well, look, if you can't donate 100,000 of them, don't worry about it. Donate 20,000. Just try to donate as many as you can and as many as you can afford to do, and as much time as you have to commit to it. So yeah, we know we're above 2 million. Maybe we're above 3 million as of mid-May, and hopefully the demand doesn't continue to escalate like it has over the last month. Maybe it'll stop around 5 million. Hopefully it won't get to 8 or 10 million of these things. If it's that high, that just means that there's more shortages than we could have imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's amazing though, that you're up at that level in such a short period of time. I mean, yeah, it's a great testament to the productivity and the capabilities that this industry has to be able to really step up to the plate and deliver so many shields in a pretty short amount of time.
Well, yeah, and that was that was the impetus for this whole thing when we saw on television the slow motion manufacturing with 3D printing and some of these other clunky methods that people were using. And you look at what we do in our factories every day. As I've said, this is like making a great big pie box, only instead of fitting it for a pie, you fit it for the human face. And this is what our industry does all day long, and we can get to market with these designs very, very quickly. And no one appreciates what we do, but now some people actually do. We've received numerous thank you letters from local first responders, fire departments, EMTs, that type of stuff. They actually appreciate something we do, which the folks in our plant love, because we seem to have such a thankless job. We deliver typically, what people call wasteful secondary packaging that ends up in the landfill or hopefully the recycle bin. But it's a product that people take, they pull out what they want, and they throw away what we've done. And in this case, they're actually using what we've done. And it's also nice. I didn't realize this at first, but the face shields, because they are so cheap and disposable. That's what the hospitals and first responders like. They use it once, have someone cough in their face, they take it off, throw it away, and put on a clean one, fresh. They don't have to clean anything, wipe anything down, etc. So it makes their life a little bit easier than having to constantly disinfect a plastic face shield all day long.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, that's great. Yeah, and that's a good point. That the ease of just taking one off and replacing it with a clean one. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
These are fully recyclable, but in this case, we don't really encourage people to recycle them if they've got COVID-19 over them. I guess that's really not what you want in your next batch of recycling.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good point. So just to jump back, and you mentioned some of the the thank you letters that you've received, and kind of how that's been uplifting to to the companies out there that are participating in this and working hard to produce these. So I'm sure there have been tons of accolades coming in and thank you notes, but do any stand out in particular that that you can share with us of of stories that you've heard from the recipients and some of the things that they've relayed back to the organization?
Well, I mean, just one of the first targets was the New York State Department of Health, because a month and a half ago they were just about as desperate as any place on earth to receive PPE, and so that was one of our first production. Actually, that was the very first production run for them, and that was I will bring this up, by the way, that was digitally printed simply because we had stock ready to roll and it was the right caliber, roll width, etc. And so the first batch ever of fiber shields in the U.S. was printed digitally. So that's something nice, we think. And so ourselves, and then we also had the folks at Paperworks, which is in your neck of the woods, Corey.
Sure, yeah.
So Paperworks and Zumbiel stepped up and supplied, I think between the two of us, over maybe around 200,000+ face shields to the New York State Department of Health. And, this was a little back and forth with, okay, we didn't even have a specification in terms of how many per case and how many per pallet, per truck and all this. So they were back and forth with us trying to get this information so they could get these things into their warehouses and distribution centers and get them out. And just every step of the way, they were just so thankful and so appreciative that people were actually just coming out of the blue to help them in this manner. And it was just nice because, normally people call us up and say, can you make this box and deliver it by a such and such a time? And it's like, yeah, sure we can. And you do it. And then it's like, okay, fine, on to the next project. But this was just it was almost heartwarming to see how appreciative they were and how desperate they were. And then to be able to actually help them and know that what you're doing has some benefit to somebody. But, so many times, the people in our industry, I know a lot of them. I'm on the PPC board and the IPG board. And so you mix it up with a lot of these people. And by and large, they're just great people. And they're all involved in different charities and different nice things for the communities. And these are all the same people who would be first in line to cut a check to somebody who needed help. But so often when you're donating money or, some boxes or whatever, you do it and you don't really know where it's going and how it's helping and really what becomes of it. But in this case, you really saw that what you were doing was making a difference somewhere. And as we've said, this might be the first time that the paperboard industry has actually contributed towards saving a life. I don't know. But we, if we have donated these shields and some first responder gets coughed on and doesn't come down with COVID-19 because he's wearing the protective device, well, that's pretty cool from our perspective.
Absolutely. No, it's an incredible story, and yeah, it's lots of good being done by this. So yeah, that's fantastic. So Ed, just as we wrap up here, for those out there that might be interested in taking part in Fiber Shield production, how do they get involved?
It's really simple. You can go on the website, and there are telephone numbers you can call based on which continent you're on. We have the U.S., Europe, Asia, and South America. We don't have Antarctica, unfortunately. Well, that's good. The penguins are safe. And so you can call and ask how to do it, or you can go on the site and send an email. There's a contact form, and basically just send an email advising that you'd like to be involved, and then we'll get you listed on the directory, and you can agree to donate some shields, and then you can have access to all the files, and then you're on your way. There's lots of instruction, and then of course there are lots of paperboard companies that are volunteering to provide stock free of charge or deeply discounted for donated shields. And there's a listing of them, so you can just click on their button and find one in your local area. If you're in Europe, call Metza or Stora, or West Rock GPI. If you're in the US, stick with the US suppliers, and then you're off to the races. And it's really easy to find people who need the shields. Most of the people have been issuing press releases when they're involved with this. Some of the folks have had television coverage on their local news. And once the word is out that you've got the PPE, people will find you so quickly and exhaust your supply. So it's an easy product to sell, especially when you don't charge for it, and people need it.
Absolutely. Perfect. Great. Well, Ed, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to get in touch, and thank you for sharing the story of Fiber Shield. And yeah, keep up the great work. It's an awesome initiative, and yeah, it's been really inspiring to see how the organization's been able to bring the industry together and do a lot of good. So thank you again for all of this.
You are most welcome. Thanks, Corey. Have a great day.
Thanks.